What's up everyone, welcome back to Miami Miles. My name is Mickey. In today's video, look at this ladies and gentlemen. What's up everyone, welcome back to Miami Miles. My name is Mickey. In today's video, check this out ladies and gentlemen. That's right, both of my GT cars lined up side by side for the ultimate GT car comparison. To your left, the 2016 Cayman GT4, and to your right, the 2018 991.2 GT3 Touring. Now this you're like,
Mickey, not another video about Porsche and GT cars.
well listen Johnny, I'm with you, you know. If I had 18 million cars, we'd probably get some variety in the content, but today, I've been thinking about which of these cars is truly the best, because this guy right here, I've been daily driving it every single day for the better part of a month, and I can tell you unequivocally that there are some parameters and characteristics about this that I prefer over that. But there's something that this car provides that does not, which is the magic, the fizz, the emotion, right? This one gives you the... you know, I won't tell you what it is, but this one gives you all the feelings that one can't, which is why I've kept it in my garage. And albeit I've kept it in the garage for 29 out of 30 days, I can't get rid of it because I love it so damn much and it is so damn collectible. So today, ladies and gentlemen, my goal is to convey through this camera to you the advantages that both of these cars have against one another, because believe it or not, at $100,000, $100,000, that's all this thing costs. It does have some aspects that are way better than that. So let's go for a little walk around, and then we're gonna go for a drive in both of the cars back to back to show you which one is indeed the greatest GT car for the money. Anyways, let's get right into it. So let's start with the appearance of these cars. Which one do you think looks better? From this angle right here, both cars are utterly breathtaking. From here up, you see how both cars are savagely close to the ground in respect to how many inches between the ground and their front splitter. As a matter of fact, this car, once the front lift is down, is very annoying because it scrapes on every single bump on the road. But yet, I think both of the cars here look drastically similar. With these three front vents, you'll see here also the three front vents, the LED here, the LED here. It's crazy because from here down, you would think that they're identical. But from here up is where the looks take a turn, because that's where both cars start taking on their own personality, starting with this guy. These rings, these headlights are perhaps some of the most breathtaking headlights ever fitted to a vehicle in history. I love the rings. I love the quad LED lights around the headlight. I feel like these headlights are timeless and will remain so for many, many years to come. Whereas these headlights here, they look dated. They look like they did not spend that much time on the headlight. So that's where both cars kind of take a turn. They both pretty much look the same, but if I had to pick a winner, it would be this guy, because it just looks a tad bit more modern. So now let's take a look at the sides of these two beautiful automobiles. Honestly, from this viewpoint, both cars look so similar that to the untrained eye, you would think that they're both Porsches and that's it. But as you analyze the lines and look at the nuances just a bit deeper, you'll notice that this GT4 has this delicious side intake wherein when you roll down these windows, you can hear it inhaling air through this vent into its 3.8 liter flat six producing 385 horsepower. Whereas this GT3, it's just smooth. It's more refined and sophisticated. It's more like a finely tailored suit. As I've said before, even though this is good looking, nobody on the street is gonna mistake this for an exotic car. Only true Porsche aficionados have ever come up to me and be like,
Mickey, is that a GT3 Touring?
and I'm like, Johnny, yeah, it is. You know, we get into these conversations that go on for 30 and 45 minutes, but that's once in a blue moon. This car, on the other hand, you drive it up to a gas station, you park it, and all the little kids come up to you like,
Can I take a picture? Can I sit in the driver's seat?
and you feel just a little bit more like a rock star in this. And obviously that has to do with the color. But the fact that it's got this, that this is a mid-engine layout versus a rear-engine layout, makes this car just a little bit more exotic and just a little bit better looking from this angle. So from the side, from the side, you know, which one is sexier? I gotta give it to this guy, the GT4. So we've checked out the front and the sides of both of these beautiful cars. Now we find ourselves at the rear. And like the typical 12-year-old boy that I am, this is the angle that gives me a rock hard little thing in my pants because it gives me all the tingles. The rear of these cars are so damn breathtaking. Starting with the GT3, I love how the Touring's roofline slopes down into its rear end section. It is so quintessential Porsche that it just leaves me speechless. There is no big ass wing obstructing the rear end of the car, nothing to disrupt the lines. Now, at the same time, that wing normally is the thing that brings attention to a car, and in removing it from the GT3, you remove all the attention. Nonetheless, this rear end makes me feel like I'm James Bond because it's so smooth, it's so sleek, particularly how it slopes down and integrates into that center exit exhaust and rear diffuser that has the vents, has the holes to push the car down and give it some downforce. Remember, no rear wing means not as much downforce. So Porsche has gone through extreme lengths to give this car downforce, and they've done so while keeping the looks that are very tasteful and sophisticated. Whereas, ladies and gentlemen, the GT4 on the other hand is so much more boy racer, starting with this spoiler. This spoiler that produces over 200 pounds of downforce at 186 miles an hour looks so damn cool. Every little kid that sees it, they come up with their phones, they're like,
We want to take pictures!
you know, and being the crazy guy that I am, I let them take pictures, I let them sit in it, I let them rev it. I love this thing. It brings out your little boy spirit. And the rear end of the car doesn't look that bad either. Specifically, that rear diffuser and that center exit exhaust, which also look very aggressive and extremely sporty. So both rear ends are gorgeous. But the bottom line is there has to be a winner in both the rear end section and the entire look of the car. By the slightest of margins, the overall appearance, the winner of which car looks better is this guy, the GT4. I think it's just a little bit nicer looking than this, and even though the car is about half the cost of that, you would never think it if you didn't know any better. So now ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna jump in the cars and we're gonna go for a little drive. And I'm going to share with you the driving impressions in both cars and let you know which one is better. Anyways, let's go for a drive.
2,000 years later.
So what better way to start this comparison than in the GT3 with the loud exhaust on, in sport mode, in first gear at 4,000 RPM. Go. 7, 8, 9,000 RPM. 7, 8, 9,000 RPM. Woohoo! Dude! And that right there is the first advantage that the GT3 has over the GT4. That glorious 4-liter naturally aspirated flat 6 that revs all the way out to 9,000 RPM, producing over 500 horsepower and an 11.5 second quarter mile at 126 miles an hour. That's something that the GT4 will never ever match. Listen to this. Third gear, second gear, 8, 7, 8, 9. Dude, I'm going 100 and a lot of miles an hour right here, and the experience is just so satisfying. I feel so excited right away. That's the thing that this car has that the GT4 does not. That engine injects so much magical fairy dust into the cabin that you feel the highest of highs as you drive this automobile on a road like this, coming over into Miami Beach. This is spectacular. Just right there, look, that's 4,000, 5,000 RPM, and that engine is so magical. Now, it's not just the engine that delivers the power that makes this an emotional experience, it's the way that it sounds, right? So we're in third gear. Listen to how it screams. It screams like a banshee. That was 8,000 RPM. I still had another 1,000 RPM to go. I can't even give it the beans because I'm traveling at a rate of speed that is obscene. And it's crazy because you get into this car after having been accustomed to the GT4 for so long, and you're like, oh my goodness, that's what a fast car feels like. And I know most of you guys that have been in 1,000, 1,500 horsepower cars, Mickey, the GT3 is slow. Well, I think you guys are just irresponsible, because what other car could you enjoy this much on a road like this? How much more power do you need? I feel like the GT3's engine delivers the perfect combination of power and emotion. A combination that is unmatched by even the Huracan Evo, the R8, the 458, the FF. All these other naturally aspirated masterpieces can't match this. Now, I haven't driven the SVJ V12, and I'm sure that's spectacular, but I don't know how it would deliver the fizz and the magic and the metallicness that this thing does approaching 9,000 RPM. But guys, you guys knew that the GT3 would be better in terms of its engine, in terms of its emotion, and in terms of its sound. But what else about this car is better than that in the GT4? Well, I think we should start with this car's GT-like personality. It is perhaps the best Grand Tour in history. So I'm going to go ahead, quiet the exhaust, take it off of sport mode, and look at that. The car just goes into this calm and reserved mode that feels like a luxury car, which is insane. This is a car that most of us expect to carve up a racetrack, right? You expect it to be uncomfortable, but when you drive it around in comfort mode, it becomes a car that you can daily drive. Now, I was unwilling to drive a car this collectible and this special every single day to my office to have dumbasses in my parking lot scratch it and beat it up. It hurt too bad, which is why it's been sitting up in my garage. Nonetheless, as a Grand Tour, in a way that it isolates you from the exterior, from the harsh noises of the outside, this thing is spectacular. And that's a good segue into its damping. The way it's damped is insane. Like, I know we always talk about magneriological dampers that are in, you know, the Corvettes of the world and the Ferraris of the world, and the way that they react 100 million times per second. Well, these dampers feel like they're connected to the road. It's like they react prior to hitting a bump on the road, because the bump ends up feeling like part of the experience of driving the car. Think about that for a second. It's as if these cars, 4 contact patches, are connected to the bumps on the road, and they're talking to one another. It's like they're buddies. Hey man, make sure you lift up right before you hit this bump. That's what it feels like. It's damped so well. And the next thing that I noticed, apart from the damping and the GT-like ride, is the clutch, right? The clutch in this is so buttery smooth. And I had somebody get into this car that's accustomed to driving older cars where the clutch is harder, and they didn't like it. But they didn't get the point. They didn't get the point that this clutch is meant to, be accessible to a wide range of people. And some of you may like that, others may not, but the clutch in the GT4 is so damn hard. Here, it's like you push the clutch down and you need probably 5 to 7 pounds of force to get it all the way down to the footwell, to get it to decouple the drive shaft from the, I don't know what the hell it's connected to, but to get the thing to decouple, it just feels so delicious underneath your left foot, and it doesn't get your left calf tired in any way. So yes, that clutch does enhance the driving experience and give you comfort and the GT-like personality in the right places, just where you need it. But I think all of this, right, these are all the things that the GT3 is better than the GT4. I think all of these things together deliver one of the absolute best driving experiences in the world. The GT4 cannot match this car's highs, meaning you put the loud exhaust back on, you put it back in sport mode, listen to that. You don't get that from the GT4. Not just that, but you go, okay, I want to go crazy now. So it's 6,000 RPM, 8,000 RPM, 70 miles an hour. Get a load of this. Hold on, run underneath this overpass. That was 100 miles an hour. The GT4 doing the same exact thing would be going, I don't know, 85. This thing pulls so hard, and it's so special. It's so special. This engine sprinkles in fairy dust into its cabin to make you high, to make you emotional, to make you fall in love. It's like that pheromone thing. When you smell somebody that you really like, you fall in love. Well, when you hear this thing, when you experience this thing, you fall in love. And it could be that you haven't seen it for a month or 2 months or 3 months. When you get in it, it's just as special as before. The million-dollar question, guys, and before I get too carried away, is what about the GT4? The GT4 is a half the price. What can it deliver that this car can't? So what I want to do is head back home, and I want to find out. But first, let me downshift into third. Let me downshift into second, and let's take this thing to 9,000 RPM. A little more time. 7, 8. Listen to that, man. It's so fast, too. It's so fast. Anyways, guys, we'll see you back at home. So now we find ourselves in the GT4. Get a load of the second gear, 7,600 RPM. Third gear, long gearing, 86 miles an hour. Slow down, you lunatic. As I come over the crest into Miami Beach, this car is so much fun because it just begs you, please, God, please beat me up. Punch me in the face, slap me like the bad girl that I am. That's what this car does, 100 miles an hour around this bend. And at no juncture do you feel in danger for your life. This thing is spectacular. Oh my goodness. Okay, Mickey, calm down, calm down. Now, if you guys are new to the channel, you'll know that I've got this special affinity for this car because I do daily drive it every single day. I take it to and from work and I beat it up just like that at least once or twice a day. So yes, I've fallen deeply in love with it. But the question that you're probably begging me to answer is, what about the GT4 is better than the GT3? We talked about the GT3's engine, its GT characteristics, its dampening, all these things that make it great. But what about the GT4? Well, starting with the moment that you get into the car is just a little bit more of an event. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that because the engine is right here, this is a mid-engine design. It resonates little vibrations and burbles and metallic noises through this firewall into this little ear. So it does feel very special and just a tad bit more exotic than the GT3. Now, apart from that, I think this car's crowning jewel is this steering. This steering is so damn good. Honestly, this car feels like a go-kart on a road that, you know, is connected directly to its 2 contact patches on the road. So as we go around this car right here, okay, let's give it the beats a little bit. The steering, man. The steering is so spectacular because it transmits every iota of feel in through your fingertips. And not only is it the feel that makes it great, it's the immediacy of the way it reacts to your inputs. Like, I've never been in a car that makes, you know, switching lanes satisfying. I think I said this about the Cayman before. It's the only vehicle, the GT4 in the world, that makes just going like this a tremendous amount of fun because you feel like you're riding around in a go-kart. Have any of you ever driven at like a pole position or one of these go-kart places and you just feel like the go-kart is so much fun because you feel like you're glued to the road? Well, that's how this feels, and this steering gives you every bit of that sense. And you feel just a little more special when you're able to look around and see the Miami skyline right in front of you. What an experience. So yes, the steering in this is better than the steering in the GT3, and the experience is just a bit more exotic because the engine is right there as opposed to way in the back. Now guys, what else is better about this than the GT3? Well, the fact that this car is about 2,850 pounds means it's over 200 pounds lighter than my GT3. And you can feel those 200 pounds on the road because the car feels way more agile. It doesn't feel like such a sledgehammer rolling down the road and building speed in a way that it's uncontrolled. It feels like a little feather just floating through the wind, and any little bit of wind that swirls in any direction will make it turn direction. That's what this thing feels like, and perhaps it has to do with the fact that it does have a mid-engine layout and that it does weigh so little and that it does have such great steering, but it feels like a go-kart. It feels like a go-kart. Sure, the engine's nowhere near as spectacular as it is in the GT3, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing because this car is just so much fun to exploit on a road like this. And that fun factor is in part due to this shifter, which is also better than the shifter in the GT3. This thing never misses a gear because it's got a metal notchy feel every time you click it into place. And in the GT3, I can tell you, I've missed the gear 150 times. I borderline miss it every other time when I'm headed towards 9,000 RPM and I go for the lever and I go into third and I almost always miss it. But in here, I never miss it. So yes, I love this shifter. And that's a stark contrast to the clutch, which I hate. This clutch is probably 4 or 5 times heavier than the clutch in the GT3, which means that around town, it's a little more cumbersome. I don't think I could give this to my wife, for instance, and have her enjoy it. This is a car that requires a true sports car aficionado to enjoy. And that's the thing about this car, is that I think it's better at being a sports car than the GT3. The GT3 is perhaps the best Grand Tour in history. This is just a really fun sports car that does this really well. Like, as I go in front of this guy, and I know I'm driving a little bit like an asshole, but this car just begs you to drive it like this, and you don't feel like you're putting yourself in danger or anyone around you. Oh my goodness, those brakes. Those brakes are so good. Now, I can't compare the brakes here to those in the GT3 because these are the PCCB's carbon ceramic brakes that are not only lighter but larger than the steels in my GT3, but these brakes are immense, and I think if you're going to get a GT4 or even a GT3, these are the brakes to get. But where does that leave us with the GT4 as an experience? I think overall the GT4 is a better sports car experience than the GT3, and I know that's going to shock a lot of you, and a lot of you are going to unsubscribe and be super pissed off and be like, Mickey, you! But listen, Johnny, it's just a truth. It's a fact of life, that this car is better engineered to drive it like I drive cars than the GT3. I don't feel like I'm riding around a bull. I don't feel like I'm hanging on for dear life. I feel comfortable and confident and able to exploit this thing at every turn, and that's what I love so much about it. But that begs the question, how different is it than the GT3? And I think the answer to that question is that it's completely different. This car is 100% different than the GT3. Oops, I missed that gear, but it's 100% different than the GT3. This feels like a sports car. That feels like a GT car with an atomic bomb strapped to the back of it. So I think you could technically get away with owning both of them like I do and enjoy both of them for what they are. The question is the GT3 worth 2.5 times the cost of this? Well, if you're strapped for cash and you're really going to put yourself in an uncomfortable position to buy either car, I would say, guys, go for this thing. Go for this thing and ring it out like a boulder, rolling downhill at 120 miles an hour. Ring it out just like that and enjoy it on roads just like this every single day while saving $1,500 a month and $150,000. Just enjoy it. Now, if you've got infinite money, infinite resources, then I would recommend, get yourself both of them. Get yourself both of them. That's not to say that I've got infinite money or infinite resources, because I'm just a broke guy that puts all of his money into cars. But if you've got enough money to just have both and all of the other cars in your stable, do it, because you're going to enjoy this thing. It's not fast. It's not going to take your breath away in terms of how it pulls from 60 to 130, but it is going to extract a smile from your face when you're in traffic like this and you switch lanes getting in front of others and you cut people off and you go 100 miles an hour when everyone else around you is going 50. That is what this car is for, and I absolutely love it. I would not, given the choice of just one, pick it over the GT3, because the GT3 is just too special in terms of it being a touring and in terms of how delicious it's spec'd. But in terms of a driving experience, that car is not 2.5 times better than this. I love this thing. I love it. I love it. I love it. Anyways, guys, crazy review. I know you probably went nowhere, but I hope you were entertained. If you were, go down below, give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you baby, next video. Take care.
Bueno, sí.